Welcome back. And moving on to our first segment of today. As we mentioned, we are going to shed the light on the recent visit of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to Hungary and talking about the deep relations between both countries and different means of cooperation. To discuss this in more details, we have the pleasure to have Professor Hassan Waguih, Professor of Negotiation and International Relations. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
So, first of all, I would like to shed the light on the importance of this visit.
Yeah. The importance of this visit lies in the fact that four countries in the central of Europe invited our president along with Japanese and German presidents. So I think that is very important to get that recognition with Egypt ascending power in the area.
Yes, of course. But talking also about, this is the second time for President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to attend the Visegrad Summit, right?
No, this is the second time.
This is the second time, yes?
Yes, 1917 was the first, and then this year.
This is the second time?
This is the second time.
So if I'm talking about the importance of this summit and the importance of the cooperation between Hungary and the countries that we have just mentioned and Egypt.
Yeah. Actually, these four countries requested that Egypt should be an ally to them and consequently an ally to the European Union. They have a very good voice inside the European Union. So this is what we should care about and we should focus on. They requested kind of cooperation in all fields, industry, agriculture, and education also.
The President talked to us about also means of exchanging expertise and talking about investments and different means of investments when he was talking about the Hungarian countries in Egypt as well.
Yeah, actually yes, agricultural cooperation was on the table, negotiating table, and but the President already mentioned so many things. We took the chance to tell the entire world not only to talk to one president or the four presidents.
But let's talk about this part, and then we're going to move on to all the points that were discussed.
Yes. So the point of cooperation in all possible fields with these countries, they are welcoming that. They invited Egypt for that reason.
Yes, we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about tourism, and how to work to boost more in this respect.
Yeah, of course, that's it. They wanted to have this needs detailed experts to talk about in what way tourism should be addressed or agriculture should be addressed. But for political science scientists like us, we will say they had constructive meeting. They cooperated in all possible fields.
Right. Talking about the economic cooperation, when we talk about the four Visegrad countries, and talking also about our cooperation with Hungary when it comes to the fertilizers, for example. How do you see the future and how important it is, and how can we continue? As you mentioned, yes, of course, the President visited these countries and paved the way for us and paved the way for investors to continue and to cooperate together for better future.
Yes, we are supposed to go for details regarding the concerned experts to address these details in these particular very closed files, fertilizers, agriculture, whatever. I don't think I am the right person to talk about these particular issues, but I'd like to talk about other issues. I'd like to talk it from a global perspective a little bit. What concerns me as a political scientist and a linguist as well, and a cross-cultural communication expert, because there is something relates to cross-cultural communication. Let us talk about the implication, the most important implication of this visit. Is that what the President talked about as his strategy for human rights? And he made so many good statements to the European friends that we have different perceptions. We are talking about negotiation, we are talking about perception, emotion, and communication. So the way they frame human rights sometimes got in a collision course with some other countries. And I think this is a very important point. And I think it opens up the space for us, here in particular in Egypt, to call for an international conference on human rights. Because I'll tell you something, when I was in the United States a long time ago, several years ago, with the United Nations University Conference with the World Future Society, I had a paper which is very interesting by someone called Michael Marine. The title is very telling. The title is the Fragmented Future of Human Rights. He's talking about that human rights itself needs to be addressed from all. No one country in the world has lived up to all the elements that were mentioned in the Declaration for Human Rights, the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. So I think this is very important because when you listen to someone like Noam Chomsky and he's saying there is a slow death of democracy in the West and there is a slow death of human rights in the West. So we are talking about people inside the Western Hemisphere. So they are debating the issue of human rights and what could be done and what could not be done. And that not one country has ever lived to address all the elements of the declaration. And they would like to reconsider the declaration. So I think as a political scientist, what concerned me a lot is that President Sisi said something very important, that we have different perspectives. He said that we don't claim that we address everything. We are trying and we are doing our best. And he is claiming that the next year will be the civil society year. So I think all of this would enable us as people in the country here with all the levels to open this kind of international discussion and the deep dialogue. The president said we need a deeper dialogue regarding these issues. When it comes to human rights in Egypt, he made very good statements like the honorable life in the countryside, which Egypt dedicated 7 billion pounds. We talked about several initiatives of the same sort. Mitsaha, what do you call it? 100.
Yes.
Yeah. For every Egyptian needs to have this kind of treatments. So I think we need to open up. He is for opening up the dialogue and for getting people to speak their minds. Freedom of expression is very important. But the most important thing when it comes to this is that in this culture in particular, and all over the world, by the way, it is not what you say, but how you say it. So, unfortunately, one of the things that people discussed when they were discussing the fragmentation of human rights, the slow death of human rights all over the world, not in any particular place. I think they heard someone was making an interventionist statement, which is very good, another futurist. He says, don't forget this, the social media. What the social media has done to human rights and other things. Shortage of time, misinformation, disinformation, trivializing of political discourse, and people here are not prepared to handle correct information. You know, when I go back at home and I try to look at the channels and I see some antagonizing channels, really trivializing political discourse, really disseminating misinformation and disinformation. So I think this is a global problem. Even the United Nations Secretary Guterres in the last meeting, which took place in September of the General Assembly, he said that we have to have a look on what is happening in the social media because it created chaos, it created divisive societies, divided societies, it created terrible polarization, not in particular one country, but all over the world. So I think that when when the president was a little bit angry when he said, nobody is to give up commands and to talk to us from above, telling us what to do and what not to do. I think this is very important statement because the whole world is living in a status of social media, media wars, interest groups. I mean, so facts are obliterated here. So I think this is very important implications. And for me as a researcher, I would like to call for an international conference on discussing the dimensions of these human rights.
To discuss it in a more, or just to shed the light on some of the important facts that even the president, not only during this visit, but he mentioned this several times, even that was in France, if I can remember. He was talking also about that it was really a transparent dialogue. When we talk about human rights and we talk about Egyptians, our perspective is to live a decent life, to have houses, to have our basic needs, many important elements that we have to talk about. And I think now they started to feel what we were claiming or what we were suffering. Again, the social media, because they started to live the same war we are living in right now.
Right. Actually, this is a very important statement on your part. Really, I think, yes, this is the core of the problem that needs to be discussed. Also, there is another important thing that really missing in some of the Western circles, which is Egypt has gone through a very tough time, and I myself as a professor at the university, I have seen my university being set on fire. We have seen churches burned. We have seen a shooting act in the mosque. We have seen terrorism, and it was really chaotic situation. To handle this chaos, all the people rallied behind the Egyptian armed forces and the president to settle this kind of chaos. And thank God, we have done that together, the people and the police and the armed forces with the leadership, so as to settle the situation and getting things back to normal, as it used to be in Egypt. For Egypt is a builder of civilization. Egypt is a big country. It should play its big role, not only in its area, but all over the world. So I think that the time has become ripe now, when we have good economic situation, we have stability. People really wanted to open up the dialogue, because there was no dialogue when you have people burning things. You have no dialogue when people are in a chaotic situation. So I think that we have already passed over that, and we have already having a new page where Egypt is moving towards good development programs and implementing them with rigorous and with zeal. People want stability and wants also the public sphere to be open more and more after we settled everything for discussion and for freedom of opinion and for all the elements of human rights which are in a chaotic situation in the whole world and needs to be readdressed. And even some people are trying to reconsider what could be added to the to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which really started out in 1948. So a long time ago has passed, and many developments all over the world. The world is witnessing now 5 major global wars: trafficking, alien smuggling, money laundering, what else? Intellectual property rights. All these kind of wars needs a great deal to be interconnected with the world to handle them. Governments are facing, all over the world, are facing organized crimes. Those people who are doing alien smuggling and trafficking and the drugs and all this, they are smart, they have networks all over the world, they outsmart governments. When they are talking about arms dissemination, you know, there are thousands, tens of thousands of weapons are being in the hands of people who are not regular police or armed forces. These are really threat. And there was a recent paper in Foreign Affairs in the United States talking about the danger of these 5 wars, and the people who are launching this with organized crimes and mafia, etc. They are really doing a very bad job for the entire human rights and for the entire human race. When you are selling people and we're trafficking and getting drugs the way they do it, with all unbelievable potentialities and networking. And you know, in the United States, they killed one of the drug dealers who really flooded the United States with drugs. And they felt like they have already finished the job mostly. But those people know how to make leadership and to get another leadership, and they are having a very strong submersive effects on all the countries. So I think these 5 global wars should be added to the list of how to reformulate and restructure the issue of human rights and the issue of these global wars. Add to that 5th generation wars and 4th generation wars, and became now 6th or 7th generation wars, where countries are targeted and people want to make chaos and to make submersive acts. And I think this needs to be done as a first priority for human rights.
If I can just describe the progress, or the engine of progress can never move forward without 2 important or 2 main pillars: political situation and stability, and of course the economic stability. And this has proven to be very true when we see all what we achieved. It's not only on the economic level, but also on the political relation with other countries. And we have seen the president moving on from one country to the other, whether we're talking about the States or the European countries or to other countries as well. So how do you see this nowadays under, or let's say within all the challenges that we are living nowadays, and how to work more on the awareness of people, as you mentioned, different means of accepting different cultures and working together, because you can never ask or promote for more investments without learning more about different cultures as well, to receive different cultures in your country. And I think Egypt achieved a lot in this respect. Let me take an example, for example, about refugees in Egypt. They are living in Egypt, they are working, as the president himself mentioned. We don't have people who are just coming here. They are living as Egyptians, taking all the rights Egyptians are taking.
Yeah, he did not call them refugees.
Yes.
He called them guests. And actually, this is how the world should come and see. Because we are...
we give a very good example about our guests here in Egypt.
Definitely. I can swear to God that I can see them all over, and we are in our hospitals, in our
schools, universities, working around.
Egyptian people are hospitable by nature. So we have already hosted those people. They are guests, as the president said, not refugees. And this is a very important distinction between what's happening in Egypt and all over the world. And they are estimated by 6 million of people, so sharing us everything. And talking about the various visits of the president, let me say that one of the most important aspects of all these visits is that no one visit was left without saying something about the Renaissance Dam. The president made it very clear that Egypt's share should be intact, and we should reach an agreement based on mutual respect and mutual benefits, and this is why we do care that water resources should be shared, not to be an object of conflict. And this was reiterated several times by the president. And also when it comes to human rights, the right of Egyptians to have water. I think this is very important thing for all Egyptians now, and the Egyptian people really watching out for what's happening in the Renaissance Dam, and they call it the Ethiopian dam. I hope that this would not be a political dam, and it will everything will be resolved with peaceful means, with win-win approach. Egypt is insisting in a very strong and very clear way about having a win-win, how to build your country and my country. Your development is not to kill me, but we can develop together. But when we have obstinate, one-track-minded behavior of the other party, this needs the international community to intervene and to help in solving this terrible problem.
All right, Professor Hassan Waguih, Professor of Negotiation and International Relations, thank you very much for joining us.
You are most welcome.
Right, moving on to a quick break, then we'll be back with more on The Breakfast Show.